The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
From the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and Mat Talk Online, this is Legends. On behalf of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, welcome to Legends. My name is Jason Bryant. This show will take you through the past, present, and future of wrestling's greats and those enshrined in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. Successful at virtually every level of his storied career, Brandon Paulson is recognized for his wrestling prowess and coaching expertise by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a 2019 Distinguished Member. The highlight of his wrestling career was winning the silver medal at 114.5 pounds in Greco-Roman at the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta. He also competed 3 times in Greco-Roman at the World Championships, winning a silver medal in 2001 and finishing 8th in 2002. A 4-time U.S. Open champion, Paulson excelled at every age group level of USA Wrestling, winning Cadet, Junior, Espoir and University national titles and a silver medal at the Espoir World Championships in 1993. He was an All-American for the University of Minnesota and a 3-time high school state champion at Minnesota's Anoka High School. He had a career high school record of 155 wins, 12 defeats and 1 tie, and was named Mr. Minnesota Wrestling in 1992. He was named Greco-Roman Coach of the Year by USA Wrestling in 2008 and received the honor again in 2016. Paulson was a member of the U.S. coaching staff at the 2008 Olympic Games, while also helping coach U.S. Junior Greco-Roman World Teams in 2007 and 2008. He served as a club coach with the Minnesota Storm, working with senior level and age group athletes at the U.S. National Championships and World Team Trials. He's also been a member of the Minnesota USA Wrestling coaching staff for the Junior and Cadet Nationals, helping produce numerous national champions and All-Americans for one of the strongest Greco-Roman programs in the nation. Paulson was inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum's Allen and Gloria Rice Greco-Roman Hall of Champions in 2013 and was a member of the charter class of Anoka High School's Hall of Fame in 2011. Distinguished member by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, class of 2019, Brandon Paulson. Now talking with 2019 Hall of Fame inductee as a distinguished member, Brandon Paulson, All-American University of Minnesota, Olympic silver medalist, kind of a good at this Greco thing. And first things first, Brandon, congratulations on the induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thank you. It was awesome honor and surprising a little bit, but it was I can't wait for the final induction here.
Why is it surprising?
Well, you never know. You don't think of yourself as a Hall of Famer, right? Until maybe you actually become one. For me, I wrestled as hard as I could and did the most I could. I of course suffered some losses, and I just it wasn't something that I was really expecting at all. And I think part of it is maybe my wrestling and that I've stayed with the sport and coaching and have made an impact that way. But so I just didn't think of myself that way.
When it comes to getting into the sport of wrestling, because everybody has a story about how they got involved in wrestling, Hall of Famers usually it's rarely by chance. How did you first get exposed to the sport of wrestling? How old were you, and how did it happen?
Well, when I was 5, my dad brought me to hockey for some reason, and I didn't like the cold.
You live in Minnesota. You have no choice.
I still don't like the cold. So 6, we tried wrestling, and he wrestled in high school. And after the first year, not only was I all in, but my father was all in, where he became the coach and brought me everywhere. And, it was, so in Minnesota at that time, we started freestyle and Greco. That's the way I started. My season started in January and went until June with Northern Plains, and that was my season. So I started in the international styles. So when I was 6 years old in January of that year, so that's how I kind of started.
Was there any preference to Greco right away, or was it just you? I mean, looking at your what is Fargo, which is, it's been probably back then with Cedar Falls, and
it was Cedar Falls. It was actually Warrensburg once, Cedar Falls, Minneapolis my senior year,
Fargo, and then it moved to Fargo.
After
the juniors moved to Fargo before cadets did.
Yep.
Man, you predate Fargo in every instance.
Come on, I know I'm a little old, except I've been to Fargo so many times.
This will be my 21st year in a row going to Fargo.
So I've been
think
wrestling
about that
a long time and coaching a long time. So, for as far as Greco, not when I was 6 or 7, but I think probably when I was about 10 or 11, I started wrestling a little bit more of it just because of my style of wrestling. I like to underhook, I like to hip toss, and that style kind of went towards Greco. And there wasn't that much still until I was a little bit older, till I was at cadet age. And, cadet and juniors, I always did both styles. But, starting, I'd say 10th grade, I basically trained Greco. I went folk style, but right after folk style was done, I was training Greco, but wrestling freestyle tournaments. And still did fine, and I still really enjoy freestyle. I do to this day. I enjoyed it back then, but there was a passion I had for Greco that I loved, and getting involved in the national level and national team camps and such when I was young, I think really helped me move along in that. I've made my first world team in freestyle. I made it in freestyle. So it was, that year I had lost in the cadet national finals in Greco to my teammate, Brandon Howe, who went to Totino Grace, by the way. But he was my club teammate. And, so at that time I still hadn't decided, but I kind of knew that Greco was my thing. So
I want to go back because so much of Greco-Roman's history, not just in Minnesota, but in this country, centers around Anoka, Minnesota.
That's great.
Now, were you born there? Did you guys move there? I mean, how do you become part of this lore of Anoka wrestling?
We moved there when I was 10. My dad actually is from Coon Rapids, which is a neighboring enemy.
I mean, it's 10 minutes. It's not a gigantic move by any stretch of the imagination.
No. So, no, I actually moved and he thought we were moving into the Coon Rapids School District, and we were actually in the Anoka School District. And that's how I ended up at Anoka originally.
So this was not a wrestling move.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I think, was I 4th grade or something? So it was, we just
the way they label transfers now. You were a recruit in 4th grade.
I was a recruit, absolutely. So and then it is amazing the history. I mean, if you look back to the Hayeswinkles, so everybody knows Sam, but the uncle and dad were unbelievable. One was a 2-time world medalist. They were on Olympic teams.
2 of the funniest guys on the planet.
Oh, and all they do is laugh. Right?
Yeah,
laugh at each other, laugh at their son. They're unbelievable. And they were the same time as Dan Chandler. And, my dad actually was on the Coon Rapids team, the enemy team, seeing those guys, compete. And, but for Dan to be on that same team, and Dan really, again, you talk about somebody that's had, so much impact. He's coached the Storm, since its beginning, it seems like. I think Alan Rice might have been the first coach, but Dan came through and wrestled.
You're putting Chandler like 20 years older than he actually is.
Well, here's the thing: he was like a coach and wrestler, So it was he didn't coach back in '68.
Were on the Olympic teams in the '60s. Chandler's, he's taught. We're in the later '70s.
So maybe not the start, but the start of
not Moses era.
No, and back when he was wrestling, it was the Storm and everybody else. They would have 4 to 5 guys on the team, and Alan Rice was a coach and it was a supporter for a long time. But it's just Chandler's been around for so long and been the coach for since 84 or so. He's been the coach of the Minnesota Storm and had multiple medalists, with Kozlowski winning a couple medals, Lowney and myself, and but he's from the same high school as I was. So, and then I came along and wrestled, and then now coached, and then Jake Deichler came around and made the team when he was 18. And we still have guys like Tyler Eichens, who just made the junior world team, and Kelvin Germanero, who's on the junior Pan Am team. So it's an amazing tradition.
When you go into the gym at Anoka, I've been there once it was, I believe, a state freestyle tournament, and you walk around, and granted, the picture of you on the wall, maybe to this day, maybe not the most becoming picture with your glorious mullet, but
it was awesome.
There's that wall is so impressive, and it's not just internationally, but the state champions. What is it about the culture of wrestling at Anoka, because it doesn't necessarily get the national name recognition like an Apple Valley, a Simley, those type of power programs, now a Shakopee, for example. But there's a tradition there that really it's kind of unmatched in a lot of ways. Explain what it's like coming through that system and what you had maybe as a respect or a reverence for those who came before you.
Ron Malcolm was a coach for a long time. He retired my senior year, but before that, he had coached, I think from the early 70s. So he was there quite a long time and built a great program where there is over 50 different state champions, obviously Olympians, and I remember stepping in the room the first time as a ninth grader, and it was a little bit scary, like. What am I stepping into, and seeing all the state champs on the wall. And, as an Anoka wrestler, I had expectations that I wanted to be one of the greats, and I wanted to make the former wrestlers proud. And, I wanted to get up on that wall. So it's an unbelievable program, and still going on now. My dad still coaches. Because
wrestling coaches never retire.
He never retires. He kind of coached my youth club, and then helped out at the high school when I was there, and we ended up winning a state title. And then now he has grandkids in the program, right? So one just graduated 2 years ago, so he helped out the program all the way through there. And when he was a youngster, he helped him all the way through, and that whole group. And then he, of course, got back into the Minnesota Storm and Cadet, coaching the Cadet and juniors. But now my dad's still there, but the head coaches, Todd Springer and Lucas Murray, are great coaches, and they're former. I used to coach Lucas, and I was a teammate of Todd, so the tradition kind of continues. And now my son will be there coming up next year, so should be fun.
Should be fun now. And living up here in the north side of the metro, I'm in New Brighton. You're, Anoka's, it's literally, 10 through it on my way to my in-laws' place up near North Mille Lacs. And, you see Coon Rapids, you see Anoka, you drive by the giant complex that is Anoka High School. I mean, it's a big school, man.
It's a huge school. I think I had 875 graduate in my class. So at that time, it was a big school in the state. Now there's other schools. And so we had two other high schools that were formed after. So we had Champlain Park. Half of them used to go to our school, and then Andover, half of them used to go to our school, and then those two schools were created after I graduated.
It's to draw a comparison to Virginia, where Great Bridge was a powerful program back in the 90s. They were split by Hickory, and then they were split again by Grassfield. So
yeah,
and they're still pretty good. So it's kind of like that. Well, they're still pretty good, even though there's a third of the potential. Now, how good would they be right now if all those kids were still at the same school?
Yeah.
Granted, the population boom in the North Metro has been pretty sizable.
Anoka still is the dominant wrestling program. So, I think those other schools haven't caught on for wrestling as much, which is unfortunate. In their school district, there's some good wrestlers, but the programs haven't really hit it off as well. So, it's still a good program, and the population has changed. So there's still quite a few people at the high school. Both of my girls just graduated last 2 years there, and it's just kind of growing out to Ramsey area. So yeah, it's still a pretty big high school. So
now, as we get back to your career and high school credentials, like for those who are unfamiliar, how would you classify your high school career? Not on the freestyle side, on the folk style side.
Folk style?
Yes.
Yeah,
scholastic.
Yes,
or
scholastic. Yeah,
collegiate.
Yeah. And to be folk style. I started out as a freestyle and Greco wrestler, but of course, high school is a different style. So ended up being a 3-time state champion for Anoka, which was a big deal. My first year in ninth grade, that was the first time we could wrestle as ninth graders at Anoka. Or second year we could. You had to be a sophomore before that.
And okay, so Minnesota has a unique situation where 7th and 8th graders can wrestle varsity, depending on where you live, because I believe one of your kids had the issue about, was it cross country?
It was cross country, where I had a fight about it. Like, depending on the sport, where you live, if you're knocking off somebody else, they've relaxed the rules a little bit, but wrestling as 7th and 8th graders, almost all schools, I believe, allow it now. But for different sports, it was.
But in your era, you were the first. Your freshmen were eligible.
Freshmen, it was only sophomores to seniors. So, when I was a freshman, I was a tiny 103 pounder. I weighed like 100 pounds, which some of those guys were pretty big, and I think I had 12 losses in high school, and I lost 10 times my freshman year. And then I had an injury and injury defaulted, and then I lost once my senior year to a California kid, which
do you remember
still
who that was?
Oh, do I remember? I remember my losses, that's for sure. Nick Zinkin, which
okay, well, that's
is
a name.
Zinkin family. There you go.
That's a name people know.
Yeah,
I mean that's an interesting tie-in.
Yeah, no, and it was a great match at Christmas tournament. The
out
Clovis, here? Clovis, it's Clovis, right?
Well, there's Clovis West.
No, it was Clovis.
There's a bunch of them now.
Yep, but they came in, and I had actually beat them in freestyle 8, not the year before, so I was kind of confident. But he wrestled a great match, but lost that match. But so my freshman year was pretty rough, and that was a time when I was still still making gains. I think really after my freshman year. From my freshman to my sophomore year is when I really made a lot of gains in wrestling. So, and then, I became more confident myself and really changed the way I trained and changed the way I lived as well. And that helped me moving on from there. So
looking at the Hall of Fame and the distinguished members that are all in it, everybody has high school credentials, but few, I believe there's maybe 3 or 4 people have the high school credentials that you have. And this is in an era where juniors and cadets were separate. So you could wrestle both tournaments, both styles. You have the distinction of being an 11-time All-American. And I'm going to use Fargo in parentheses because that's how we refer to it now.
Yeah.
11-time, quote-unquote, Fargo All-American, even though it was, again, in Cedar Falls and Warrensburg and points, all in between there. 11 times. I think,
yes.
I think Cody Sanderson and David Keldegard might be the other two off the top of my head. I have it written down, but, 11
You know what the
bad
bad part about that is? The bad part about that is
sixer in freestyle.
And why I wasn't a 12-timer is I was the defending champion in Greco at junior nationals, and I didn't make weight. My sophomore year, my 9th grade year, I won junior nationals as in Greco, and my sophomore year, I was just getting back. I went from Japan to 20 days to the Olympic Festival, and went right from there to junior nationals, and that was my one and only time that I didn't make it.
That would be 1990, right?
And yes, so that was
there's double 88, double 89, triple 89 because you've got a cadet, 2 cadets, and a junior.
So that would have been, it would have been 89 because I was 89. I was a junior national All-American in freestyle and won it in Greco.
Because in 90 you've got just the freestyle.
Just a freestyle. I took 3rd. So
what happened in Greco?
That's when I didn't.
Okay,
so that's when I didn't make weight.
Okay, I thought you said that was the 89.
No, it was 90.
Okay.
It was 90.
Gotcha.
So you
learned a hard lesson there too, right?
It was so painful. It still hurts. I've never been close to not making weight before or after that. But it was a lesson learned, and I think I probably competed a little bit too much that summer, but came back and I did well in freestyle. But I loved to compete. And was 89, I believe I had like 18 matches in cadets and another 18 matches in juniors because it was the old style bracketing. 36 matches in a 2-week period, which, was quite a bit. My right arm, my hip toss arm was pretty much toast by the end of freestyle. I remember that very well. And, but I loved to compete and, I loved the international style. So yeah, it was fun wrestling both ways. I always try to get my guys to wrestle freestyle and Greco both, whether they're a Greco guy, whether they're a freestyle guy. Let's get out there and show how tough you are. Let's see what you can do. Let's see if you can make it through this tournament. And try to be, our goal is always to be a double champ. So, that's one of the goals for the guys that I try to put on them. So
just looked it up. I was right. Cody Sanderson and David Keldegard, and you were the only 11 timers. Now there's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more 10 timers.
6. Okay.
And the last one was actually Sam Colbray. So it was a long time. It was like Brad Pataki and then Colbray. There was quite a gap. You don't see the kids do that now. You don't see them going out 5 times.
Yeah, and it's with the tournaments at the same time now. It's hard right? Mm-hmm. So you have cadets and you have juniors.
Well, you're also going as an 8th grader, as a cadet, and as a graduated senior. A lot of graduated seniors aren't going now.
Yeah. And we still try to push them to go. I still think it's good to compete because you have a goal, man. You have
that
a goal when
stop
you're young.
Is,
that stop sign is something. And
Griffin Perriott, for example.
Absolutely.
Give me that junior national title. Give me that big stop sign, because the little ones are octagonal. They're not stop signs. The big one's the stop sign.
It's a goal that kids have when they're young, and we, for us, that's something that we push, is trying to be a junior national champ. And so those graduating seniors, we love to have them out and try to get that junior national title. So yeah, in 8th grade, I was 8th grade cadet as well, so I was able to wrestle as an 8th grade cadet, but of course wrestled all the way through.
You got 5 titles.
Yep, 5
in quote unquote Fargo.
Yep.
How does that set you up for your senior level? I mean, what's the landscape of USA Wrestling like at the time for identification? There was still a Cadet World Championships at the time. They didn't shutter that until 2000, then brought it back 2010, 2011. So what is the developmental system like then? How are you picked and be like, okay, this is, how do camps work? What's the system like then?
Yeah. So actually, when I was a sophomore, I started wrestling the Espoir, which is now junior, 20 and under, 20U20, we can call it. So I started wrestling that as a sophomore.
Why do they keep using French words that are repêchage, espoir?
Lutte is wrestling, right? So the
Canadians use that, and they're our neighbors to the north. So yeah,
I had won the Espoir Nationals that year, or the 20U Nationals in freestyle and Greco. So that year at the Pan Am Championships in freestyle, I was invited to wrestle because like Tim Banney might have been the guy and he couldn't make weight. So let's take a young guy, which they were probably thinking like a senior in high school or a first year college guy, but it was at 105 pounds. And so I had won that. So I wrestled with
Rob Eider's like, Greco, I don't know.
Randy, it was a freestyle team with Randy Lewis and Kevin Jackson and Mark Coleman and Tom Erickson and all these huge names. And I was a sophomore in high school, like, looking up to them, which was an amazing, they took it from there, which was an amazing experience for me. But then that same year in August, they needed some workout partners for Greco, and specifically for the 5 and 14 pounders at that time. And so they called me up, and I was done after Fargo. I was like, okay, I had a heavy summer, wrestled the Pan Ams to Japan, to Olympic Festival, the Junior Nationals. But they called me and asked me to come to camp out in Lake Placid. And I was like, okay, let's go. And that really was one of the things that sparked me, I think. I was a sophomore in high school. Nobody was really within my age. Dennis Hall, it was his first year, is either his senior year. I think it was his senior year. So after his senior year, so he was within 2 years, but nobody else was really within 3 or 4 years of me, other than him. But it was an amazing experience to train with them for a week. And again, see what it took to make a world team, to see some of those guys that were my heroes. The Morgan brothers, I actually roomed with Gordy and John. And they kind of took me under their wing and helped me and trained with some of those senior guys. So that was really my first senior level year where it was like, yeah, I love these international styles. This is what I'm going to get into. And I fell in love with Greco a little bit more. And at that time, every year after, the next year as a junior, I wrestled in the senior level open and kind of continued on from there. So
in that era with the 10 weights, who were you button heads with the most?
Sean Sheldon was my competitor. He beat me the first 5 times I wrestled him. I'd only scored a point on him, and he was a silver medalist in the Worlds, I believe, in 91 or 93, one of those 2 years. So leading up to 96, 92, he wrestled for the bronze, or was supposed to, and something happened. But anyways, he had beaten me all the way up until the trials, and that's who I wrestled in the finals, Olympic trials, actually, in 96. So was able to beat him for the first time. But he kind of crushed me the first few times we wrestled.
What are the learning experiences in a situation like that, where you're the young guy and then there's the grizzled veteran who goes, old man strength. Maybe, Sean was probably not that old at the time, but
yeah,
for a high school guy, it's different from wrestling grown men versus, okay, this guy's a senior and I'm a sophomore. This guy's an adult. This guy might have kids.
Yes. Yeah. It was, for me, it was all about effort, and I was a guy that never stopped. So I was down 6-7-0, and I just kept coming, right? I didn't know any better. You're young, dumb, and you just keep wrestling. So, so those guys, just beat me on position and were better than me. But for me, I just wanted to make them feel me, and I was just going to keep wrestling and trying to score points and do whatever I could. But, after wrestling those guys, wrestling older guys, wrestling college guys, wrestling seniors in high school, or people a little older really didn't affect me. I was wrestling men now, and now you are changing your outlook on wrestling. Like, I can stay with these guys. I can go with anybody. So
when you're in high school wrestling against senior level athletes, what's it mean to come back to the junior level? And was it something that you had to make sure you didn't overlook competition? What was the depth like at your weight classes at the junior level then? Were you threatened?
Yeah, I lost. I lost to Oscar Wood, which was maybe my worst. It was the last time I lost to somebody younger than me in Greco. I remember that. So
Oscar Wood's the only wrestler in history with four
junior national titles, and he beat me for one of them. And he was younger than me, and it was my junior year, and I was I don't know if I overlooked him, but he was super strong, and he beat me fair and square, and I didn't wrestle a great match, and I it's one of the matches that I would like to have back, but. It is what it is. I was in high school, and but I had dominated competition until then, and I felt great, and I maybe overlooked them a little bit, but that's how it was. But then after that, my senior year, there wasn't as much, but I had guys like Lindsey Durlocker still. I actually wrestled Jason Coots, if you remember him.
Yeah, WCAP, East Stroudsburg, guy. He coached at East Stroudsburg for a while.
He was a senior freestyle guy. He wrestled him in the finals at junior nationals one year, my senior year, actually. So we still there's quite a bit of depth there.
When did you decide to make the full transition to Greco specifically?
Well, I still wrestled in college in folk style. Again, my sophomore year.
Internationally. We'll get to your college career momentarily.
Yeah. My sophomore year, I think that's when I started training basically Greco.
So you're wrestling both styles in
tournaments, but I trained Greco.
Okay.
So I would basically find partners, and train Greco with. I'd call different guys. And get Greco workouts in. Of course, we always had the Wednesdays. And then the senior level was training, so I trained with some of those guys sometimes, but not all the time. But, and I did some freestyle practices, but I trained a lot more Greco than I did freestyle at that time. So I think that was kind of my turning of where I was going to be heading more towards Greco than I was towards freestyle. And then I started doing the camps in the winter, whether it was my junior or senior year. Even, I took a trip my senior year, or maybe it was my senior year, where I went overseas during the folk style season and went to a Greco tournament. Me and Dennis Hall did, which was interesting. I was a junior in high school. Oh God! If you ever travel with Dennis, he loves travel so much. But it was just us two, no coach, no ref, and we went to Sweden. It was a marvelous trip, but it was, during the wrestling season, that was still my, what I wanted to do. So I knew kind of my since then. So.
Now, this day and age, we have Greco options. You can go Army, you can go Northern Michigan, you can go to the Greco program at Williams Baptist down in Arkansas. You can, even some RTCs are even adding some Greco. Penn State's got Provisor and Mason Manville out there. And then, we've got here in Minnesota, you've got options to go to school at Minnesota and still train Greco the Storm. Is that why you chose the University of Minnesota?
Pretty much. There's two reasons. One, we had a chance to win a national title. My freshman year, we were actually ranked number 1. We beat Iowa. We beat Oklahoma State. This is when I wrestled, actually, my redshirt freshman year. So we had a great team. So I thought we came to win a national title as a team, and because of the Greco in Minnesota. So it was, back then there was no resident program at the OTC or Northern Michigan. Portland State had a D1 wrestling program, it might have been D2. But they had great wrestlers. I was with Dan Russell. They had quite a few very good wrestlers out there, and they trained Greco pretty much year round too. So Minnesota was an obvious choice with their Greco tradition and having Dan here.
Minnesota or Portland State? Yeah. Is that what?
Well, Wisconsin was an option.
I was going to say, Wisconsin had the options.
No, Wisconsin was an option, and I just if I'm going to go to, a great program, a program that was on up and coming, which was Minnesota, which is in my backyard. Notre Dame still had a program at that time. I talked with them and they were cut the next year. So that was, glad I didn't explore that option too much. But so, yeah, I think Minnesota was an obvious choice for me. And it was because of Greco and because of the program was coming up and we had a chance to be national champs. So,
and that's something that Jay always seemed to not mind. He's like guys on the team. And, there have been guys that have been on the team. Like let's talk Pat Smith, for example, spot starter at times, open tournament, pretty much a Greco guy that was part of the program.
Yeah.
The odds, you obviously want to compete for the spot. You want to start, you want to win an NCAA title. But it didn't seem like Jay had a problem with the kind of Greco-specific guys being in the program, you giving the guys different looks, maybe being a starter, maybe not. I mean, what was Jay's opinion of?
Well,
your Greco?
It was. I think it.
Or did you change his opinion on that?
No, no. I think earlier on we had more. Back even when I was training in '96, where we used to have some practices in the spring. Later on he wasn't as much in favor of it, I would say, even though he was a Greco-Roman Olympian. He wasn't. Which
most people forget about.
Yes.
Outside of the state of Minnesota, they think, J-Rob. Oh, no, he was in the Olympics in Greco.
Yes. So he wasn't a huge proponent of it, I guess, because he wanted his guys to do best in freestyle. Or, I mean, in folk style, which I understand. But guys still did it. For me, it was just a little different going in from the start. It's like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to wrestle Greco in the off season. And, hopefully it helps my folk style, which the year off I took in Greco actually was my most improvement in folk style, but that's another subject. So somewhat, and now they don't wrestle too much in the off season. Greco, the guys, I think Pat Smith was another guy that I'm a Greco guy. He went to the trials back when he was in college. Lowney came and, he took the year off. And, I think during that time, there was some that we had actually practices in the spring and then they saw Lowney's potential and was like, hey, you can make the team like next year. Let's, train Greco. And Marty Morgan was around during that time. And Marty was a couple time world team member in Greco, and was, when 95, I went as a training partner. He was on the world team in 96. He took second in the trials and really could have been the best guy there. And he liked Greco as well. The Morgan family have been known for Greco. So some of that.
All 900 of them.
Yes, all 900. So there has been some, I think, lesser the last 10 years. Once they changed the reverse lift, I think that really hurt Greco in any of the colleges, when they changed that rule where it was the funky reverse lift down
like
and periods and
to what? When did they?
05 to 08, because Deitzer was during that time. So 08, they still had it.
Did provide some great highlight pictures.
Oh, it was great.
Gave TC Dantzler a fresh start on his career again. I think he gave his first son to Fila. I think he actually was quoted as saying that.
But that hurt, I think, America just because the colleges stopped doing it. It's like, well, this isn't helping. Even though now the rules are great. I mean, there's hand fighting, and the Greco, I think, is great for folk style with the way the rules are now. But, I think the colleges really got away from doing any of it. So it's hard to get back into now.
Kind of burying the lead here a little bit. 1996, you're on the Olympic team. You win a silver medal in Atlanta. Home soil. I mean, Georgia. It's in Georgia here, not Georgia like, Caucasus region,
Georgia, right,
but
no.
Georgia proper, as we call it here, unlike Virginia, Minnesota, Virginia the state. But you're in college, you make the team. Not super common in Greco in that era, and really, it's still somewhat common. I wouldn't say it's still an anomaly, regardless of whether it's freestyle or Greco. And you take the year off, you redshirt, and at that point you'd been to the nationals twice, you'd finished in the blood round 95, redshirt. What's the Olympic experience like start to finish? Like, what is the process once you win that spot and have that opportunity to compete with the red, white, and blue? It's not just, it's a world team. This is the freaking Olympics.
Yeah, for me, the Olympics were, they were always a dream. And that's really what drove me since I was young. I was an Olympic nut when I was young, starting in 84 when I was in Los Angeles, when it was, again, home country.
How many Sam the Eagle coffee mugs do you have?
I was a Carl Lewis guy, a Greg Louganis, all the stars back then, Bobby Weaver, Frazier.
I think what was the joke somebody said when Bobby Weaver won, he's carrying his kid around. It's like, oh my gosh, you win the Olympics, they give you a baby.
But that kind of started me off my Olympic dream, and really to make the Olympic team, beating Sean Sheldon, who I talked about earlier, who had beaten me 5 straight times. And I had only scored a point on him, and I beat him in 2 straight. And, to make that team and to go into the opening ceremonies in Atlanta in the United States of America and representing your country, and guys are waving their flag and chanting USA, and you're walking around that track. It's still fresh, and you can see my hair standing up.
I'm thinking about it now. I remember watching the opening ceremonies, not knowing what really wrestling was. That was the year I discovered really Olympic level wrestling. Was watching, Kendall and Kurt Angle win medals, and Bruce, who got a bobblehead right here of, and Bruce one-arming the flag on the opening ceremony. Everybody now got harnesses. He's just like, I am gonna. It was unbelievable. Teams, freestyle and Greco, we both teams did awesome. We had 3 silver medalists in Greco, which, we hadn't been really a power ever. And it was you, Dennis, and
me,
Ghaffari?
Dennis, and Ghaffari. Yep. And so the whole experience, I remember winning my semifinals match and being like, holy.
And this, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first year that the former Soviet republics were well, not all of them, I think, but there was still.
Yeah, so there was.
Armenia was immediately a factor, right?
Yeah, and I don't know what the qualification process was, but Armenia, they won their first gold medal ever against me. That was the first Armenian gold medal. But yeah, Armin Nazarian, obviously, he was one of the best all-time.
He's a bad dude.
I don't know. He might have ended up winning a combined 5 or 6 World Olympic titles, but he was unbelievable. That's who I had in the finals. But yeah, Belarus was there, in Russia, and I don't remember if Ukraine was still. Ukraine was a power still.
The Baltics were available in '92 because Lithuania was a bronze in basketball, the Dream Team year, because they had the Grateful Dead T-shirts in '92. I remember that. So the Baltics were 4 years ahead Olympics wise.
I don't remember Azerbaijan being a power back then. So
they didn't have the oil money yet, I guess.
Yeah, so, a few of those teams weren't as good, but
there weren't the trading, the international Russian trading wasn't happening yet.
Yes, but it was more Russians. So
Tomazov was still a Russian at the time, I think.
So yeah, it was an interesting field, and it was a different field than they had seen in 4 years before when they had it. It was a unified
team.
Yeah, unified team. So
AKA CIS,
and that changed wrestling as far as just a distribution from then on. Of winning a medal and then when they cut weights, it just made it worse. Right? You go from 1 Russia and 10 weights to 15 Russians and 6 weights. It just makes me ill.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably, granted all 15 aren't powers. I'd say it's probably 10 depending on style, because the Baltics are better in Greco. Yeah. Your Turkmenistan and your Tajikistan, one guy per style every now and then. But your Ukraine solid both, with the women, all 3 styles. Azerbaijan, all 3. Russia is Russia.
Yeah, and Greco, Kazakhstan is actually pretty good. Kyrgyzstan sometimes, wrestled a really good guy.
They're developmental system right now. They're putting out some really good juniors.
Are they?
Yeah. The one Kamal Bey wrestled, 2 years in a row at the Junior Worlds. That guy's early.
So it's a different field now, but so yeah, the whole Olympic experience for me was unbelievable, just because, again, and it's almost the attitude you take towards anything, which I try to teach my kids that, love the fight is basically their attitude coming in. Mm-hmm. Well, coming into the Olympics, my attitude was outstanding, amazing, awesome. Everything was awesome. Practice was awesome. Opening ceremonies were awesome. Wherever we stayed, wherever we slept, everything was awesome. That was my attitude. So probably helped my performance. And then afterwards, I got to spend 12 days at the Olympic Games, going to every event I could. It was, and for me, again, I was Olympic nut. I used to videotape the volleyball games and watch them later. I was that guy. When they're in Seoul, Korea, I was still watching the games the next day because I videotaped the volleyball. So it was an awesome experience all around, not just competing, but being around other athletes, and the whole being in the United States I'm so happy it was there. And people are like, wouldn't you rather have it somewhere else? I was like, heck no, man. imagine Atlanta, and it's not a very big stadium. I don't even know how many people.
It's probably, I think they like 8,000 to 9,000 seat.
And it was
for the Olympics,
packed, and it was like shaking. Like the whole building was shaking when they were running in and announcing my name for the gold medal match or my semifinal match. And so was that at the? It was at the convention center, I believe.
It's probably a Jimmy John's now or something like that.
So it was, it was awesome. Actually, I just went to the convention center last year. My son wrestled in the kids nationals there last year, so he got to see the facility, kind of. But it looked
well. This is
like
the site, son.
Yes,
You
so
want to get Jimmy?
now.
Want to get Jimmy John's for lunch? No. What's interesting? We were talking about the losses, what you remember. Years can go. Sometimes losses haunt people. It doesn't seem like you're super haunted by the Olympic loss in the gold medal final, or was that something that's it's waned
like
over the years?
Some losses haunt me because I think I could have done something different, or I overlooked somebody. I think in the Olympics, I thought going in that I could be an Olympic champion, and even that match I had, the first 2 minutes I wrestled really well, almost got a score. Then he got on top, and he is a monster on top, and scored on me. I still fought to the end. I didn't give up. I ended up scoring a point. I got a switch. By the way, I got 2 switches in the Olympics, Greco, which is, a folk style move, but I got 2 switches. But
because escapes don't mean anything now.
Well, reversals.
But I'm saying there was the rare escape in Greco, which I think you got one at one point. Didn't you get that? Didn't you get an escape in 2004?
It was in 2004 I got one to tie it up.
We'll go there. Go there in a minute.
But yeah, so I mean, to be an Olympic gold medalist would have obviously been my dream and my goal. And but to win a medal, I'm still proud of the way that I represented the U.S. and the way I prepared for it and the way I wrestled. So,
where is your Olympic silver medal right now?
My Olympic silver medal is waiting for me to go to Oklahoma Stillwater this coming up weekend. So I am. It's in my closet I got a little case for it. I actually have a framed picture up at Pinnacle with a space for my silver medal. That sometimes, like the first day of the program in September, I'll have it out so people can see it, but I don't leave it there. I keep it in my house.
Gotcha.
So I can see it handy. But, I don't see it all the time. And, I think my kids haven't seen it. My son, I don't even know if he's seen it once or twice. But, I like to look at it every so often.
I mean, I think a lot of people got to see what Olympic medals from 96 look like because, Kurt Angle was on TV with it. Those were not his real medals on TV, okay? I think Henry's lost his 2 or 3 times. So who knows? But now when we come back to the college season, so you're making the team, you got Olympic silver medals, then you come back, you'd been round of 12 blood round the year before, redshirt. Yep. And this is, I guess, maybe a misconception from college wrestling fans. I guess they see you win an Olympic silver medal. They expect you to be right there for, he has silver medal in the Olympics. He should win an NCAA title. And, you fall a match short your junior year after coming off the Olympics. What was that transition like back to college wrestling and coming
actually,
up short again?
That year, I was ready to win a national title. To be honest, that year I transformed my body. Really, I did a different lifting program. I gained like 15 pounds that year I took off to train for Olympics. So I was a lot bigger than I was, and my mentality was different. And going into the year, I thought I could win a national title, and I think I was 18-1. I'd wrestled Sheldon Thomas, the defending Olympic champ, or defending NCAA champ.
Clarion.
Yep. Took him down the first 2 times. He ended up beating me 7-4, but that was my only loss going into national duels. And then I was wrestling Jeremy Hunter at national duels. Ended up beating him, but tore 3 ligaments in my ankle. And didn't have surgery for like 2.5 or 3 weeks after, 2 weeks maybe after national duels because they thought it was just a sprain. So they didn't do an MRI. We didn't do an MRI right away. So I ended up having surgery and then putting a pin in it. And then 2 weeks later, and this was like 10 days before the Big Tens, my pin got infected. So I was on crutches again. They had to take the pin out and basically didn't wrestle live until the Big Tens that year. And more me not being able to get over, I didn't have confidence in it at the Nationals. didn't wrestle the same. I really do think I was a top 3 guy at the NCAAs that year. It just didn't happen for me. And that's why I see, and it happens to a lot of people at NCAAs are hurt.
Well, we don't know. Nobody's healthy.
Nobody's healthy.
It's a 6-month season. It's who is less hurt and typically wins.
So, and that is true. And that's what people don't see. You don't get to see other people right now. You're like, that guy really bombed. Well, he could walk
then too in your area.
Or his rib was
just starting it. We don't have the 24/7 news cycle. It's not crazy on wrestling, but there is Twitter. I mean, everybody knows that. Let's look at David Taylor currently. Everybody knows he's hurt because they saw it live stream. They didn't probably see, only if you were there at national duels did you see you get hurt. So people will just look at it and say, "Oh, what happened? Oh, he just the amount of information doesn't exist then than it does now. So maybe you were probably more likely to get a pass in the lore of wrestling. Olympic silver medalist. He got hurt in this season. Very few people actually tell that story that way.
Yeah, and it's and it was not just us hurt. Again, everybody's dealing with injuries, and so I wasn't tough enough to get through it. Right, I didn't have confidence enough in my ankle. It's partly the attitude you take towards everything. Right, so if I would have went into that nationals confident in my ankle and being like, this is what it's going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to wrestle the same way I wrestled. Then I might have done better, but I wasn't confident in it. So it wasn't just the injury; it was my head too. Like you gotta get through stuff like that. You got to be tough enough. You got to love the fight, man. And I didn't, and so it didn't happen. It didn't work out, and it was very disappointing. Because I had confidence going into the year, and I felt great, and I thought my folk style wrestling was good at that time. My body was good, so it was round of 12 again, and I lost in. So that one I lost before I lost to Danny Felix in overtime, and that one I lost to Valdez in a 1-point match there to be an All-American again. So
Shane Valdez?
Come on. Shane, Dane, I think it was Shane.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Yep, both of them are Oklahoma, Shane and Dane, and I wrestled him again the next year to be an All-American.
Yeah, because that would have been 90. So in 98 is now we're going to there. You finally place.
Yep.
And before we even get into that, how much of a relief was it, first of all, to finally get on the podium? I mean, it was 7th, but you're D1 All-American.
It was a heck of a bracket.
Also it's the year the weights, the weigh-in system changed,
switched.
And 3 wrestlers died that year.
Yep.
I remember I was a freshman at Old Dominion, and some of the guys on the team lived on my hall. This is before I lived with the team for the next 6 years. But the guys come in, we get 7 pounds. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys don't even freaking start.
No,
night before weigh-ins, or what was the weigh-in procedure like before the change?
It was basically day before.
Yeah,
right.
It's like 18 hours.
Sometimes they did a 5-hour weigh-in, but most of the time we were having night before weigh-ins and cutting a lot of weight, cutting a lot of water weight. You'd lose 8-9 pounds that day, the day of weigh-ins.
So what do you walk when you step on the mat at 118?
I mean, you were 35, 34.
So you get
literally
7 pounds.
Then it's almost the same thing. It was almost the same thing. And 7 was about right because you could get your weight down and, work out a little bit before. But it was.
What about the difficulty of competing 1 hour after a weigh-in for the first time?
First time, that was different. Yeah. That was different. That year I didn't come out till the end of January. So Jay and I didn't always see eye to eye. But more than that, it was, I didn't know if I wanted to wrestle folk style anymore. Mm-hmm. And they had a guy in. I knew they had a guy. They had a chance to win a national title.
Who was
Brett Lawrence was in there.
Okay, Brett was
there. But he was struggling to make weight. And he couldn't perform because he had the 1 hour weigh-in was killing him. And he's a friend of mine, right? And I could see that in him. And then our team was doing really well. And Joe Russell was a coach, and I kind of talked with him and decided to come back my senior year. I wasn't going to wrestle, and so I came back and it was after national duels that year that I came back and wrestled. And so really the goal was to be a team national title, to win a team national title going into nationals that year.
So if your points were blood round points and that's what you offered, that was your goal is to score as many points you can The individual title, if it comes, it comes. Is that the mindset?
Yeah, and I was trying to help out the team to win a national title was basically the goal coming in, and I could pin people too. So I think I got a pin my first round, but then I had Stephen Abbas, who turned out not to be too bad. But I knew at that time that he was
so good, isn't he?
He was really the only guy I think that's ever taken me down and cut me. In freestyle, folks, I was pretty good on my feet always because I grew up freestyle. Not folk style as much, but freestyle and Greco, whatever. But
you get kicked out for the first time ever.
Well, I was like, this is how it works. So I don't remember how bad he beat me, but I think he cut me like 3 times or so, and I think it might have been like a 9-2 or 3 score, and he was better. He was better technically, and he's Olympic silver medalist. And
that match looks so much better historically because at the time you've got the silver. He hasn't gotten it yet.
No.
Now historically, you got Olympic silver medalists wrestling each other in the turn. It's like, isn't that the best thing about history? Is sometimes it can make you look a lot better than you actually were,
absolutely,
or you think you were.
I just remember I was just kept trying to dig underhooks. I'm going to try to get my underhook. But he was a little bit too fast for me.
Was it? What did he get you with the most? Was it a high C? Trying to dig that underhook,
I don't even remember how he scored.
Or flash type stuff.
You know what? He was the one I lost to in consolations. I lost to David Morgan first, and then I lost to Stephen Abbas.
Morgan was at Michigan State that year.
Yep. And he was a competitor of mine that I wrestled a few times, and the year before he
had actually started his career at Morgan State.
I tech faulted him when he was at Morgan State, and then he came back and beat me a few times when he was at Michigan State.
Sounds like he made the right decision.
Yes, he was unbelievable on top. I couldn't get away from him to save my life. But then I wrestled. Abbas was in wrestlebacks, which he had lost to maybe Teague Moore or something, and that's why I got kicked off to the 7th and 8th place match. But so it's not, it was an amazing bracket, and it was great to place, but I really wanted that team title. I think we ended up 2nd or 3rd that year. Mm-hmm. We were close, but didn't quite come through.
Following that, what happens 2000 for those who are...
So 2000, 98, 99, I won nationals in 2000, and then Olympic trial finals in 2000. I had Stephen Mays, and Mays beat me. He was a tall, huge 119-pounder. Beat me.
Army guy, right?
Navy.
Okay.
Yep. Beat me in the finals. I had actually beat him in the 96 semi in the trials, but then he got the better of me. I beat him at nationals that year. He beat me at trials that year. So he ended up going on to Olympics that year. So.
Yeah, guy a lot doesn't get a lot talked about because he didn't have a college career really to speak of.
No, and he was big. He was tall, and it was a couple day weigh-in at that time too, and I struggled with his style, and he out-wrestled me and beat me. So it was after that I got to wrestle him in 2001 at the trials before he retired, so I got him back. But yeah, so 2nd in the trials in 2000, which is again disappointing, but
at this point in your life, how far do you say, all right, 2000, that's it for me? Or are you saying, okay, 04 is going to be my last run at this?
No, in 2000, looking forward, I didn't train right away, but I'd trained my whole life. So I took some time off the mat, and, but the World Championships in 2001 were supposed to be at Madison Square Garden in New York City. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go one more year here, and that was probably decided in January. I'm going to go another year and, try to make the World Championships and wrestle at Madison Square Garden, a famous facility, and be able to compete in front of the United States again in 2001 World. So I wrestled the trials that year. I had Steve May's first round actually of the World Trials, and I beat him, and then I had Sean Sheldon in the semis. My other
at this point, probably pretty old, right?
Yeah, he was getting older, so I beat him, and then Cervone was a guy I had in the final of the trials, and I was wrestling pretty good actually. I came back strong, and it was probably the training leading up to 2000 that did it to me. I trained really hard, but didn't make it, and I made the 2000 team thinking I was going to wrestle in Madison Square Garden in 2001. Then at training camp in 2001, I was in Colorado Springs, and it was September 11th. And I remember walking down the stairs of the OTC, going to the lunch area, and that's the first time I saw the plane crash into the building was when I was at the OTC. And my daughter was in 1-year-old, so I was supposed to fly back that day for my daughter's 1-year-old birthday. So I was going down to train before getting ready for the Worlds. And, then the world changed. and 9/11 happened, and so then it changed everything, and the worlds were changed, and I had a drive back to Des Moines with Joe DeMayo, and
that must have been a treat.
That was a treat. He was driving to New York.
Jim Shorts Joe,
and
I love that guy.
I can't remember who else was in the car. My dad met me in Des Moines, because you couldn't get a flight out, you couldn't get a car to pick me up, and then the World Championships were moved to Greece, which was actually not the same city, but place where I won a silver medal in the junior worlds when I was 19. So I kind of like competing in Greece. And, in that year I wrestled, it was an unbelievable tournament. I had a tough draw. I had a guy who was going to win the worlds 2 years later, Dariusz Jablonski, who I wrestled maybe one of my best matches ever against. I had a semifinal match with a guy, he wouldn't stop, and we had just a all-out battle that I won, I think 3-3. And then I met an Iranian in the finals that beat me. He was super talented, and I made a few mistakes during that match, but that whole tournament I was at one of my best. That in 2002. So
next 2 years you're on the world team. You don't place. Then we get into 2004. Weight classes have been collapsed. We go from 8 to, so we went from 10 to 8 now to 7.
10 to 9 to 8.
10 to 9 to 8.
Yes.
Now we're at 7 here in 04.
Are we at 7 by that time?
Because we're at 7-7-4 because women's wrestling has been introduced.
Okay.
And you and one of your best friends and training partners, Dennis Hall, meet in Indianapolis in what has become probably the most epic American Greco-Roman match of all time. You remember the losses. This is one that everybody remembers.
Well, thanks.
And it's because of what it did is it showed the one thing that's great about wrestling is individual perseverance for 20-something minutes. This isn't a consolation with Brian Keck wrestling for the record of longest match. This is on the line. This is something, I guess mindset going into that match.
Well, the whole series, it was, I was real confident. I was the best guy. I felt I was the best in the world. That year I had won a Olympic qualifier that had the guy that won the Olympics, the country Russia that took second at the Olympics. I beat a world champ in the finals of that tournament. So I felt like I was at my best. And going in, I had a game plan for every match, before every match. And I played the game plan out. And they ended up not working out. But that first match, it was like, I'm better in the clinch position. I want to get there. And he ended up getting a good lock and bring me out. The second match, I was like, he keeps clubbing me on my head. I'm going to headlock him. So the first like 5 seconds, he clubs my head. Boom, I hit a headlock. And I ended up winning that match. And then the third one, it was like, I got a score on top and get the victory here. And I scored on top and I had a 2-0 lead. And, going into that match, I was confident, and he was a friend of mine, but he was also a competitor trying to win a weight that was mine. This was my weight.
And Dennis is notoriously a loner when it comes to his training for the most part. He trained with Terry Brands as a freestyler, and he would kind of, went Wisconsin for a year. He's like, nah, I'm doing Greco. He's always kind of been his own marches to the beat of his own drum in terms of that.
Yeah, so we trained together quite a bit. So especially the year he won the Worlds was a life changer for me too. In '95, I was his training partner, and so I went up to Wisconsin for a couple weeks at a time. Went over to his place and trained. The year before in 2004, he came to Minneapolis and trained. He had Bulgarians that year come, mm-hmm. So he had 3 different guys come in and train with him because he was friends with Ivan Ivanov, mm-hmm. And so he had guys come and train with him. He wanted to train wherever he was. That's where Dennis was comfortable. But yeah, I had trained with him a lot. So we'd known each other.
So how close before, I guess, the championship series do you guys stop training with one another?
Yeah, we didn't that year. So it was like leading up to trials in 2003, we trained. He didn't go to, and I think the camps in 2004 or to get ready for 03 Worlds, we trained together quite a bit. And then after that, I didn't see him, and I actually invited him up to train in December because I had a guy from Denmark who went on to win a Olympic medal like 6 years later, 5 years later. And I was like, hey, you want to come up and train? It was Hakan Nybelum.
Yeah.
So
he won a world medal they're twins.
Yeah,
there's Anders and Hakan.
Hakan was
in Denmark in 2009. He was a bronze medalist.
So I was like, hey, you want to come train? Left a message, never heard back.
I think he's actually on a flag in my closet right now. I think everybody in the U.S. has a flag from that year. I just thought nothing of it, whatever. But then I heard he's going down, and is what it is, right? He's a friend of mine, but we both want the same thing. Mm-hmm. We want to be world champs. We want to be Olympic champs, and I bring it on. Let's go. I'm the best in the world. This is my weight, and that's what my thought was. And so going into the match, we have two teammates, two guys that were silver medalists in the same Olympics. He was a world champ. I was world silver, and so I think that kind of set up that final, and it was a final of 3 matches, and it was a heck of a battle. I actually hadn't watched a full thing in a long time, and I just watched it last week. Well, they keep putting time on the clock too. They didn't just set it back. Once you ran out of the 6 minutes, it was like, well, what do we do?
Yeah. Well, so
they put 5 more on. That wasn't long enough.
You know what the funny thing is, and Dennis probably doesn't listen to anything, but Dennis had no idea about the rules or anything, right? He's just clueless. And even when I was training with him, I would have to tell him what the rules were, what the criteria is, and so it's. Well,
and to clarify, this deciding match, it typically wouldn't happen like this. And
it wasn't the rules, So at the 6-minute mark, it was 3-3. So
it should have gone to a referee's decision, correct?
Not at that time. So the clinch was only if you didn't score 3.
Right.
So it wasn't going to be the clinch. Dennis didn't know this. He thought maybe we were going to clinch, but whatever. I was like, no, we wrestle for this 3 minutes. Now, after that 3 minutes, at the 9-minute mark, they're supposed to pick a winner.
Okay, yeah, that's the...
If the passivities are the same, which I had won a match earlier that year on it. But it was like, hey, let's wrestle. And the referee's like, let's wrestle. And so we were like, let's go.
I think I vaguely remember Sandy making an announcement because it was an Olympic spot on the line.
Yeah.
It's go until you win versus having, a criteria determine a winner.
Yeah, which I was all good with. Let's go, and he was all good with, and so let's battle. And, the match was amazing just going into overtime. I was at 2-0, and I kind of felt like I had a really good advantage. I was pushing him a little bit, and I can see it in the match. There's about a 15-second period where I actually dug an underhook. He was going back a little bit, so I was trying to take a high dive, and as I hit my high dive, his front headlock was I hadn't really been thrown to my back from my feet in a long time, and it just didn't happen to me. I had one of my advantages was always I had really good balance, and I landed on top. I had good hips, and that was just one of the things that I was good at. And
that was the 3-pointer.
It was an unbelievable throw. It was unbelievable. And I had watched. The
place was like, ooh.
I had watched Dennis wrestle since he was young, and he always figured out a way. And I was just like, this son of a gun does not know how to lose. And I smiled. If you watch it, I smiled. I was like, are you kidding me? He did it to me. But then it was just like, oh, well, I'm getting out and I'm going to score. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind. I was losing 3-2 it was like 30 seconds left. There's no doubt that I was going to score. So I went down, I escaped and attacked and took him out of bounds. And they gave
you an escape.
Well, I'm not sure which one they gave me. So I escaped, and to get the point, you're supposed to attack. So I escaped, I attacked, and he went out of bounds and kind of landed on his butt. So it was one for one of them.
It was an insecure. I remember the referee kind of putting his arm up almost reluctantly.
And then they talked about it, whatever. So I could have got one for the takedown going out of bounds, or I could have got one for the escape. Chandler, of course, was saying 1-1, both of them. Yeah. He's my coach. That's what his job was supposed to be. But then it's tied up, and it was a great battle. And the intensity level was, and the pace was very high. And you can see it in the match. It ebbs and flows a little bit. But, at the end, I think I really almost got punch drunk. He had clubbed me so many times. It was like, I was almost like a boxer out there. It wasn't that I was tired. I think I was just a little bit punch drunk, but I was trying to move. I was trying to snap at the same time he was trying to reach around, and so he got the final takedown. And that was a devastating loss, but man, I did everything right going up to it. I had my game plan right. I trained my butt off, but not only trained my butt off, but I peaked. I was feeling great. I felt like I was the best in the world. And he got the better of me, but it was, I gave everything I had, and it is what it is. It still hurts because I really wanted to compete in that Olympic Games and see what I could do and see if I could get to that top, but if I would have, maybe I went to become the coach that I am today, and
you hear a
went
lot
to coach Jake Deichler to an Olympic team 4 years later, which that day he made the Olympic team was one of the greatest days of my life, so different things happened, so I'm still proud of the way I competed.
Do you actually know how long the match was, actually? Because I don't know if anybody's actually got a real number.
I think it was, it took, I believe, like 26 minutes. I think the running time was only like 17. So, but it took 26 to finish, because with the breaks, this going out about.
So basically the length of your average college folk style match.
with our challenges.
How do you think that match goes with today's rules? Obviously, it's going to be, 11 minutes shorter because there's no overtime.
Yeah, push-outs would have been interesting with both of us. I used to try to get like caution ones, but they didn't give it to you all the time. And just some of the point scoring rules might have been different, but, it would have been a battle either way. Who knows? But those rules back then were very similar to what they are today, except they had the clinch, but we never got in the clinch in the last match. So yeah.
Relationship, he's got a kid that kind of bears a similar name.
Yes. My Dennis and we've been friends, and, I actually that year I went and trained with him, tried to help him win the medal. I went overseas with him. I went to the Olympics with him as his training partner / coach, and tried to help him win. Dennis is always a different cat, right? He's hard to get along with, but I still get along with him, just because he's just
great to get along with.
He's so am I. I'm hard to get along with too. So his
really
his demeanor. No, I like to laugh at him. Basically, we talk and I just laugh at. Well, he does what he does, and so I love Dennis and still talk to him and wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully he succeeds in whatever he's doing, and nothing but respect. Just talked to him recently at the U.S. Open and at the Northern Plains, so we're still good friends.
As we talk about the Hall of Fame, and you've got to have a dynamic background, credentials everywhere for a distinguished member. You're probably, if you look at your college accomplishments alone, that's probably nowhere near good enough to get in the Hall of Fame. It's your international styles and your championships at the junior level, your Olympic medals, and probably even also your coaching ability and putting guys on the world team and Deichler on the Olympic team. When you got the phone call, when you got the notification, was it a letter? Was it a phone call? How did you get notified that you were going to be part of this year's class, or the 2019 class of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame?
Leroy Smith left a message to give him a call, and really, to be honest, I didn't really. I thought it was probably to vote on a Hall of Fame or
Minnesota chapter,
maybe something. I really didn't have any idea, and so I called him, and he told me, congratulations, you're going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame this year, and and I was sitting alone at my house, and I was shocked. I don't know, shocked. I was surprised. I think I've been involved in wrestling a long time, and I've tried to help out as much as I can afterwards. And, I think, again, that might have kept my name in wrestling. Of course, coaching Pinnacle and coaching the guys on world teams and supporting USA Wrestling. And I think that helped as well. So I was surprised just because you look at the names who are in there, and it's they're legends.
Yeah, last year going in with Carl Adams, Rich Lorenzo, Townsend Saunders, who goes in after his wife. I'm sure he's going to catch some guff for that.
Well, his wife is a legend, right? So there's no shame.
No shame there.
No shame in that. My gosh, she was unbelievable. And you talk about trailblazer. I mean, that's why the high school wrestler of the year for the women is named after her. But yeah, Townsend was on the 96 team, which was a great freestyle team. Unbelievable, head coach as well. So he's so not just the names I'm going in with, but just look at the years past, and it's like it's amazing that your name's even in there. So
it's not something anybody really thinks about trying to achieve. Oh, I want to be in the Hall of Fame one day. It's basically a byproduct of your dedication to, whether it be Professional Football Hall of Fame, whether it be the Basketball Hall of Fame. In this case, it's Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's a testament to the dedication of your craft. And in your case, it was not just athletics in terms of your competition, but also your coaching ability as well. Everything you want to throw in there makes you a Hall of Famer. What does this actually mean to you, that your face is going to be on granite in Stillwater, Oklahoma?
Well, you try to be great, right? You're saying you don't want to be a Hall of Fame. You don't go out to be a Hall of Famer. You try to be the best that you can be. You try to be great. You try to be a great wrestler. You try to get to your best. And I think, maybe my last 3 years, I think I did that. And as a coach, I try to be great every day, and I'm not the best I can be every day, but I certainly try. And I think you get respect from other people, from your peers. To earn respect from your peers is a big deal, and I think that's part of what being in the Hall of Fame is, that people have respected what you've done. So to earn that respect is huge for me, and to be able to see my name among the other guys, it's for U.S. wrestlers, it's the highest honor that somebody you didn't achieve. You weren't a world champion. That's what you've earned. This is something that is just an honor that's given to you, and it's the highest honor that you can be given. So I'm very blessed that I've had the support I've had, and the people, and the life I've decided to live, and it's worked out this way. So I'm awesome. It's unbelievable.
Congratulations, man. Well deserved.
Thank you.
Legends is presented by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and produced by the Matt Talk Podcast Network. If you want to hear more from wrestling's legends, contribute to this ongoing project at halloffamenelegends.org/contribute. One-time and small monthly donation options are available. We hope you've enjoyed this look into wrestling history. This has been Legends. I'm Jason Bryant.